Hello, this is Art. Today I want to talk to you guys about unlearning the lessons that you have internalized by your narcissistic parent or parents, by your narcissistic family system. Because the thing is, whether we like it or not, and whether we're aware of it or not, those teachings become so ingrained within us on such a deep level because they began when we were so young that when we grow older, when we become adults, we may not even be aware of the feeling that drives what we do. We may be operating on like autopilot mode, on survival mode, and because of the trauma, obviously, and a lot of things that we do were things that we were actually conditioned to do. And I want to start by talking about you're rebellious point. You're difficult, you're out of control, you're the black sheep, you're the one who always causes problems. Oh my God, the amount of times that I have been told that in my life, that I'm like the problem maker. Oh, my mother used to always, oh my God, you cause so many problems, when in fact, this is actually absolutely not true. We react, as we should, to abuse and to dysfunction. We are the truth tellers. We are not the problem, okay? We speak the truth. And being labeled as, rebellious is a way for them to invalidate and dismiss our experience. And it's a way for them to reinforce the denial. And as I go through all my points, I think everything, the evil that holds these families together is denial of really what is going on. Because coming out of denial will destroy the family image. It will destroy this careful world that they built for themselves, in their head, that everything is great and everything is perfect and there's nothing to talk about and everything is normal. How many times I heard that one as well? It's normal, it's all normal. You're the one who's the problem, you're the one who's rebellious, you're the one who's difficult, okay? And as we grow older, I remember growing up truly feeling like I was rebellious, like I was the black sheep, like I was different from everybody else, because it was so ingrained with me that I was this person. And you know what actually made it click in my mind? That it actually wasn't who I was. I was simply reacting to a dysfunctional situation at home for my entire life. It was actually my kids. And I tell you, having kids actually was the most eye-opening experience for me, because I credit them for really teaching me so much about who I am as a person. We were talking about something, and again, it's irrelevant what we were talking about, but my youngest son said to me, well, actually, mom is always mom is the calm one in the house. She's the one who always keeps cool during difficult situation, and she's the one who fixes the family problems and stuff like that. He said something along those lines, and I was like, really? I'm the calm one? Like, that was so shocking for me to hear someone say to me that I'm the calm one, because it was so ingrained in me that I wasn't, that I was difficult and rebellious, and that I was the black sheep. So hearing my son say that I'm the calm one, it really sort of made me reflect on this internal belief that I held within me for the majority of my life, and then coming to realize that I was actually operating on autopilot because of this feeling. It's all these feelings that we have in the background that we're not necessarily conscious of, and this is where I'm getting at. This is what you need to start doing for yourself. They told you that you're too sensitive and that you're emotional. Again, you're too emotional, you're too sensitive. You're dramatic. Huh? Have you been told that you're too dramatic? You know? But again, you grew up in a dysfunctional system. You're not too emotional. You're reacting healthily to traumatic situations that you were in. You're reacting healthily to dysfunction and to being abused. And calling you dramatic is a way for them to dismiss reality and to dismiss your pain and to invalidate your experiences and to keep your mouth shut. You're not too sensitive and you're not too emotional. Your emotional world is normal. Anybody who goes through this type of abuse is going to react, especially when the narcissistic parent antagonizes you and pushes you to get those reactions. And then when you get a reaction, they will go, see, you're emotional. You know, you're crazy, you're emotional, you're too emotional, you're dramatic, right? You're imagining things, you're overreacting. And that's all gaslighting, you know? Because your perception of what happened is absolutely real and valid, you know? Everything that happened to you is real and it's valid. And they will do everything in their power to dissuade you from this, to make you believe that you're crazy, because that's how they keep control and that's how they keep power, and that's how they can remain in denial of the reality of the family that you're in. You're selfish and ungrateful. You grew up feeling like you're selfish and ungrateful, and there's so much guilt that comes from that, right? This guilt that, again, becomes such a part of us. You know, that everything they did for us, and yet now we turn around and we do these terrible, terrible things. Yeah, everything you did to us. Let me tell you something. When they do favors for you, it always comes with consequences. When they do favors for you, it's with an agenda attached to it, okay? Any favors and nice things they do for you are going to be used against you. They're gonna turn around and they're gonna say, oh, I did this for you, and this is how you repay me, and this is a manipulation. Because their favors have nothing to do with what you're trying to tell them. Their favors and the nice thing they did for you, you know, whether they gave you money or they gave you a place to stay, it has nothing to do with the fact that at the same time, while they did those things, they also, you know, psychologically abused you, emotionally abused you, you know, they physically abused you, they invalidate you, they antagonized you, they did terrible things to you, and they think that they can get away with doing those things to you because they did nice things for you, and you need to be grateful, and they can just pull those things out to manipulate the world around them and make you look like you're insane and like you're a really bad guy. You grow up feeling with this guilt, like you owe them something because you've been conditioned to feel that. But you know what? As a mom having kids, again, look, there's a difference between like wants and needs that are required for your well-being and healthy development, okay? You're not talking like, who cares about that nice car or whatever, their money or whatever, you know? How about emotional safety? How about growing up with healthy attachment with a parent? How about having received that healthy guidance when you were a child and you desperately needed it? How about unconditional love? How about not being called names on a daily basis and being told, like I was, that nobody will ever love you and that you will die alone and that Satan has your soul? You know, how about emotional safety? Those are needs. Those are needs that are required, that you have to give a child for them to grow up healthily and for them to, you know, thrive. You're not, you know, for them to say, well, I give you a roof. Well, thanks for not letting me be homeless when I was a child. Wow, you know, wow, thank you so much for that, you know. And also beware, because even when you're an adult, if they do favors for you, a lot of times, like I said, it's a way for them to keep control over you, because every time that they did something nice for you, they remember. They keep that in their head. It's a card that they will use over and over and over again to trigger your guilt every time that you actually have something to say about your pain, about something being wrong, about you needing, you know, to be free, to be yourself, to be free to be yourself. Okay? About you needing to have unconditional love in your life for you to be able to live your life peacefully, you know? And you topple on top of that the fact that a narcissistic parent will always tell you that you're never gonna succeed and you're not good enough. Then, you know, inside you learn to believe all those things. They had to crush your confidence to stay in control. That's what's really going on. Okay? They had to crush your confidence that they can continue telling you what to do. And then what happens is that you can't even lead yourself anymore. You know, you're afraid of making decisions that are good for you, because everybody told you all your life that you can't do it. You can't make decisions on your own. You're not smart enough. You know, you're not good enough. So, of course, this becomes so ingrained that it becomes a drive behind the self-sabotage that we do over and over and over again as we grow older. And another lie that they will tell you and they will teach you to believe is that you're the reason why the family's falling apart. You're the reason why the family's falling apart. It's not the narcissist, it's not the sick behavior that they have, it's not the denial of the entire family system of what's going on, none of that. It's you and your truth-telling, okay? That is the reason why the family's falling apart. And this teaches you that you can't be yourself. You can't shapeshift. You can't speak your mind. Again, this is a feeling. This is a feeling deep down inside, you know, that you can't be yourself, because if you're yourself, you hurt people. If you're who you are, you destroy people. And they will also tell you and remind you, like the typical abusers do, is that nobody will love you more than we do. Nobody will love you more than this family does. So you better remain loyal. And this becomes so ingrained because it creates this fear of breaking up with them, of going no contact, because you think, oh my God, you know, maybe it's me who's not able to receive this love properly. Maybe it's me who's doing something wrong. You know, maybe it's me who really is, you know, not, you know, who's defective and who's doing terrible things. And this fuels the guilt. This fuels the fear. No one will ever love you as your family does. So, you know, what is love after this, right? If this is love, you know, and you're destroying it, how could anybody ever love you again? But the truth is that real love doesn't manipulate. It doesn't shame. Real love doesn't manipulate. It doesn't shame. It doesn't betray you. Real love is unconditional. Real love won't tell you nobody will love you as much as I do, because love is limitless, you know? Love is just simple. It's not complicated and twisted like the way they make it out to be. Love is really simple. Love is you want the best for the person that you love. You want them to be healthy. You don't want to see them hurt. You want to see them happy. That's love. And, you know, they will tell you, and also as they smear you, they will tell you that you're cold, that you're heartless. If you try to go no contact with your family, they will tell you that you owe them loyalty and reconciliation because you only have one parent. And again, this triggers the guilt. And again, this triggers the shame and that feeling of being inadequate and there being something wrong with you. But protecting yourself is not selfish. Protecting yourself is necessary. Sometimes going no contact is the only thing left to do because they don't listen and because of the denial that never ever stops, the denial that runs the family, the complete denial of what's happening and what these dynamics are doing to one person, what the abuse is doing to one person. Okay? Protecting yourself is not cold, it's not heartless, it's not mean, it's not selfish, it's healthy and it's normal and it's necessary. And anybody that tells you otherwise is not an ally, is not a friend. They are gaslighting you and they're invalidating your pain. And you have to be aware of this because the guilt can be so strong. The guilt can be so powerful and it can be so overwhelming. But this guilt is a feeling that has been ingrained within you ever since you were a child through manipulation tactics and conditional love. It's not real. It's not real. These people will also instill within you the idea that you're crazy. All of this leads to you being crazy for making the decisions that you do to try to go no contact, and for you also reacting to trauma in all the ways that you do because the pain inside is so strong and the emotions, your emotions have been, you know, you've been hurt so much that you have to live with all these triggers that you have to learn to control. And they will use that against you as proof that there's something wrong with you and that they were right all along, and they will call you crazy. And again, I think that in our darkest moments, many of us will ask ourselves, you know, am I crazy? Is something wrong with me? Because of course you come out of these systems and it's very difficult to have healthy relationships. You attract the wrong kind of people, and then this sort of reinforces that inner feeling that you're crazy and that there's something wrong with you. You know, but your trauma responses are not madness, okay? They're signs of survival. You survived, okay? And you did what you had to do to survive. And you've been living your entire life in survival mode. And healing is about creating safety for yourself, a safe space where you can learn to reconnect with yourself and where you can shed all those layers, all those behaviors that you have been forced to do, those behaviors that kept you safe when you were young, you know, shedding those behaviors and finding who you are when you're in a safe, peaceful, and calm environment. And that leads me to learning to love and trust yourself, because they teach you that you're not lovable, that you can't be loved. They teach you that you can't be loved. And they will do this by invalidating you on so many levels. And they will teach you that your suffering doesn't matter by telling you to get over it. How many times has that happened to you? That a family member told you to get over it and start talking about the past without ever there being any validation or any healing, without you ever having those meaningful conversations. And if you did have those meaningful conversations, we often get backstabbed in the aftermath, because some family members may listen to us, you know, during some moments, but then when push comes to shove and the narcissistic family member is there, they don't say anything, they don't defend you, they just watch the abuse unfold and they don't do anything, you know. They don't permit you to heal, they don't permit you to process what you've been through. And then when you try to talk about it and talk about it and talk about it because you need them to acknowledge it, you need closure, you need validation, you know, they will tell you to get over it, you know. This was a mistake that I made actually when I was healing, when I first discovered what narcissism was. You know, the very first time that I discovered narcissism, I was doing research because I was so crazy. I was feeling so crazy with everything that was happening in my family, and I was like, okay, I need to figure this out. What's happening to me? Like, what's happening to my family? So I started doing research, and you know, I looked through like borderline and bipolar and this and that, you know, and nothing ever, like, a lot of the traits were present, and I was like, oh yeah, that must be it. But when I found narcissism, and I was like, oh my God, I was reading about it. And I was like, yes, 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 all the points, everything fit, everything was explained. And when I learned about it, I was like, oh my God, I figured it out. I finally figured it out. It's narcissism. I'm a scapegoat. It's a narcissistic family system. And you know what I did is I wanted to shout it from the rooftops. And I went on my social media and I was like, I figured it out, narcissism. And I started doing little posts here and there about narcissism. And you know, the people that were on my social media that knew me, you know, they quickly responded with such invalidating things, and it was so humiliating. You know, hey, you only have one mother, shut up, somebody wrote. You know, it was surprisingly a girl that I knew ever since we were very small kids, and we lived on the same street, and it was no secret that my house was like that messed up house in the neighborhood, because there was always screaming every day. You could hear the screaming and the fighting in my house, and then I would be so embarrassed when I would come out of the house, you know. Even, you know, like I said, even outsiders, right? Like these satellite enablers, these people that sort of orbit in like around you and sort of see it. Even someone like that would invalidate my story, you know, even though they would see, you know, they knew. But even someone like that would like write on my social media and respond publicly that I'm a fool, you know, for not respecting my mother. And somebody else wrote, get over it. And then my brother in the end, actually, he started to completely dismiss me and change the subject. That's what he would do. If I tried to talk about it with my brother, he would literally, hey, have you seen that latest music video or whatever? Like, he would just completely divert and change the subject. And so when I started talking about my past, I was met with this overwhelming, everybody around me was just telling me to get over it and stop talking about the past and move on, even though I was still living with the full effects of trauma in my body. I was still fully, you know, panic attacks, anxiety, and this and that, and everybody was telling me to get over it. You know, people tell you this, again, they're not your allies, and it's so easy for you to believe that feeling that maybe there's something wrong with you, but the truth is there's nothing wrong with you, okay? There's nothing wrong with you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. You have a story that they don't. You've lived through things that they will never understand. They are not in your body. They are not in your soul, okay? They don't know what you've been through. They don't know anything, okay? And what they tell you is their own problem, you know? It's not your burden to carry. Okay, so it's so important for you to not gaslight yourself because of what the world tells you. And if people invalidate you, even if everybody does it, so be it. So be it. Leave them. Leave them. You know, don't contact those people anymore. Don't And my advice to you really would be to completely emotionally detach from anybody who has ever invalidated your story, which is what I did. Because I need room to heal, and I need to be real with myself. And if you don't, if you invalidate my story and my truth, then you're not my friend, and you're not my ally, and you're detrimental to me, and I can't have you in my life. And I don't care. I don't care anymore. Like, I don't care anymore. And this is why I'm doing this. You're all my inner circle's gonna invalidate me. Fine. Well, I'm gonna go further, and I'm gonna tell my story to the world, and if it helps somebody, then great. And that's what it is. Those people are not worth it, and what they put within you, all of them. I mean, this is the very definition of what being scapegoated is. Being scapegoated is to be that lonely truth teller, is to be surrounded by people that deny your reality. And that will do something to you. It will create feelings inside of you that you actually have to connect with. Be real with yourself. Don't ignore your feelings. Don't ignore that background noise that you feel, and start becoming aware of those bodily experiences that you have, the emotional experiences that you have. Accept them as they come, and know where they come from, and continue on your healing journey. Focus on yourself, believe yourself, trust yourself, love yourself, and don't stop. Don't stop. Don't give up on yourself, because you owe it to yourself. You've survived this far. You've been this far, okay? So you're not gonna stop now. You're gonna continue learning to connect with yourself and undoing those layers and the lies and the projections that those people have put on you, because that's what scapegoating is. Scapegoating is projecting onto one person everything that they reject. If everybody in the room is denying something and there's a truth teller, they're all gonna turn towards the truth teller and destroy them, because by doing so, they destroy the problem, and they continue living their life of denial and living their life of just dysfunction happily. So I hope this helped you, and really remember that you have to really trust yourself, trust your experiences, because nobody else has had your experience. Your experiences are your own, okay? So love and trust yourself. Start listening to your feelings and pay attention to what they're telling you about yourself, because they might be wrong, okay? It might be stuff that you have been taught to feel about yourself, but it might not be true at all. If you really, really, really think about it. Who are you when you're in a place of peace? Not in a place of chaos, but when you're in a place of safety, when you're at peace, when you're in a peaceful environment. Who are you? When you're in that zone, when you're not in survival mode and you can just be yourself. That's what you need to ask yourself. I love myself. I trust myself. I see you soon.